zapatos, basura, baño. I used to know a few more Spanish words than that, but I never really spoke it. I spent the fall and winter of 1999 as a missionary intern. We were based out of Matamoros, Mexico. Went as far north as Dallas, Austin, saw the Alamo. We got as far south as Mexico City, saw the pyramids locally, and so we went a bunch of times. There was a women and children shelter. We dug septic tanks, we built walls. Of course, we played with the kids. But it was maybe a 15-minute drive from town. This little village in the desert. In Mexico, if you're in prison and you don't have someone to take your kids, the kids sit in prison with you. So you visit the prisons, and there's guys there with their wife and kids, families in prison. So that's how this shelter had started. Esther was visiting prisoners, and they just kept asking her to get their kids out of there, and so she did. One of the times, we take this box of burgers, ended up in this torrential rain grilling these burgers, and so I just got soaked to the bone. I had a fun time. It was a fun day. About 5 years later, I don't like where I'm at. I don't like who I am, and I really don't like who's in the White House. So I just had a crisis in life. It's a heck of a way to give up drugs and cigarettes, is get a Greyhound ticket to Brownsville, Texas, and see what happens. But it worked. I had a nice little break from all that. So I walk across the border. I get a cab. I have a pretty good idea of where I'm going, where the mission's headquarters is. There's a language barrier, and also we're out in the middle of the wilderness. So I end up being left out in the desert. I was able to get my stuff by trading my bags for a pair of Ray-Bans. The guy was going to drive away, and I just held out his Ray-Bans and got my stuff. I had a pretty good idea of the direction I was walking, and I'm not going to lie, man, I just said, Lord, I think I'm going this way. I remember walking by the corpse of a rattlesnake. And when I finally get to the missions agency, I literally just collapsed on the floor in a heap of sweat. And then there's the question of what to do with me. Of course, the people that I worked with 5 years ago are all gone. We get one of the higher-ups on the phone, good guy, and appreciates me. After a couple days, they take me over to the shelter. Esther remembers the cheeseburgers in the rain. So she asks for a couple numbers, pastors and stuff that she can talk to, and time to pray about it. But a couple days later, I'm living at the shelter. I became a bus driver, chauffeur for Esther, gardener, maintenance guy, bathroom. So a guy from Texas would come down on his weekends when he was available, and I was kind of an assistant plumber. Now, I'm not going to be able to talk about Bebe, who had no one. I think maybe both parents were dead. I'm not going to be able to talk about the little baby that broke my heart and her evil mother. But I can tell you some stuff. I would say it was about 25 kids and maybe 10 moms. Some of the moms got 1 or 2 kids. Most of the kids are there, and it's them. The ages ranged from the end of high school to in diapers. All right, let's start with Ramon. My first week there, Esther brings me Ramon, his forearm kind of clamped in one hand and a paddle in the other. Now think if you're gonna stir like a 5-gallon jug of Kool-Aid, this is the kind of paddle you would use. I'm told that he's done something bad and that he's gonna get a spanking, and that I'm gonna give him the spanking. I probably didn't know better yet, but I tried to argue with Esther and explain why I don't think that was something I needed to do, but I learned pretty quick you don't argue with Esther. So I gave him his paddling, and we ended up, holding him in my lap, in the rocking chair, and we both have a little cry. It was traumatic for both of us. Probably the next week I can remember comically chasing him through the yard, paddle raised over my head, like a cartoon character screaming, "Ramon, get back here." Not only was Ramon mischievous, but he had the most charisma of anyone I've ever met. So he's like, 5 or 6, and we're in this park, so happy to go up and down the slide. And then this girl walks by. She was young, she was dressed a little bit provocatively, she was attractive. Not age appropriate for me, not age appropriate for Ramon either. But he gets to the top of the slide, and all of a sudden him and this 15, 16-year-old girl meet eyes. And all of a sudden he just squares up his shoulders and just kind of gives her that little chin nod. And you saw her just kind of like put a hand to her, just go, oh, we all saw this. We all, we were all witness to this. The next moment, he turned back into a 5-year-old and went down the slide like nothing had happened. And we talked amongst ourselves and went, oh, he's in trouble now, but he's going to be a different kind of trouble in not too long. All right, so speaking of trouble, I had a driver's license. The driver's license was expired. I told Esther, right off the bat, I can drive, I got a license. It's expired though. She goes, don't worry about it, this is Mexico. And then she's sending me into Texas to do stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but my license is expired. And she goes, yeah, well, that's Mexico too. So I think that was my first run-in with the law. I'm crossing the border. And honest to God, my expired driver's license never fazed anybody. It never caught any, But I'm driving across the border. And the van somehow sets off a sensor for firearms or explosive. And so there's one border guard who's that guy. This is before Christian Bale's Batman, but he's, in my face going, where's the explosives? Who do you work for? And it was so silly. I got the giggles. You could tell he just wanted to thrash me, but what could he do? And so finally they're like, hey man, search the van, there's nothing there. And a couple of his co-workers lead him away, and this other border guard who's hung back a little bit, looks at me apologetically and just kind of goes, he's like this every day. I had another run-in with the cops, with the federales. I was involved in an accident. Had a couple of the teenagers with me who were making a mail run. By the grace of God, no one was hurt. The van, the engine was just ripped off the front of it, but no one was hurt. And so the police came, and I got a 15-year-old who's serving as my translator, Robert. Robert tells me that they are telling him to tell me that unless I can hand them $2,000 American, they're taking me to jail. So I just put my arms out, just here, go ahead and cuff me. And all of a sudden, well, maybe I have a rich uncle and they'll drive me to an ATM and maybe $1,500. I just kept putting my arms out. In the meantime, the girl who was with us in the accident, she had disappeared, didn't speak any English, so I wasn't too worried about it. She knows what she's doing. So she had hitched a ride to a phone, got picked up by Esther, was coming with a crew to tow the van. So Esther gets out of the other van and hands me an umbrella, says, keep the sun off me, brother, and then proceeds to just chew these 2 cops out. And I had to keep a straight face, and like I told you, I already had problems giggling at the border, but I had to stand there holding this umbrella over her and keeping a straight face till they just put their tail between their legs, got in their car, and drove away. During that time, I liked kids. I had a lot of fun with the kids, and I cared for the kids and bonded with them. But I also gave them their space, and they gave me my space. And so I got a lot of reading done. If I was free, that's what I was doing. Dracula, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Invisible Man, Time Machine. I found a copy of East of Eden by John Steinbeck towards the end, and so I ended up finishing that when, back in Illinois. there was a little bit of TV. I think like on the weekends, the kids got to watch some soccer and some cartoons, but it was all very controlled, very limited. Not a lot of TV. It was behind a locked door, so you had to get in there. But Esther and the moms at night, when the kids were out, they had their novellas, and so one time this series was wrapping up, and so there was going to be a party, and I got invited to the party. So I just saw the last episode of this novella. I guess the sort of older, portly lady was evil. And so like the young couple, they embraced and everything worked out for them. The older, portly lady was put in the back of a semi, and then the semi just drove off into the sunset, just drove off into the desert. All the women just clapped and I think a couple of them cried. And I was like, I don't know what happened, but they just put that lady in a truck and I'll end with my favorite memory of that time. Now, when I was in high school, we were having a storm and I went to sleep. In the morning when I woke up, the water was up to the second step of our trailer, or third step. Eventually it would be up to the top of my car, my first car, the Ford Taurus. And I would spend the rest of that day chest high in water, towing people in canoes with their pets and kids out of the water, and end up getting very sick, having anemia from waiting in that water all day. I don't sleep during storms now. A light rain, okay, but if it's pelting and thunder, I don't sleep. My brain stays up and watches out for the rising water. So we're having a thunderstorm, and I was up, and this little kid, I don't remember his name, but this little kid, he got scared. I wasn't scared, I just don't sleep. So I got this chair, it's pointed out across the desert, and I'm seeing the rain fall, illuminated by the lightning behind it across this desert. And I got this little kid who just kind of comes out, climbs in my lap, and puts his head on my shoulder. And we watched that storm for a while, and I think we both fell asleep.